Beside me here is the gorgeous Magno Mountain Grey CLA45s, and I've owned it now for over 2 years. And today we're going to look at this factory matte paint, how it's held up over these 2 years, and what it's been like to maintain. We're just getting out of the winter period now and the car is quite dirty. I haven't had a chance to wash it for a while. But you can see here, even while dirty, from a distance, this paint looks stunning. But if we get up closer here, you can see, particularly on the lower end of the car, it's picked up a lot of dirt and grime over the winter period. Starting here now at the back of the car, which is probably one of the most dirtiest parts of the car because that's where all the water and the dirt all flicks up as you're driving. And to be honest, it doesn't look bad. In fact, the worst looking part is the gloss black here. I mean, the matte grey, maybe because it's grey or maybe because it's the matte or satin you would say finish, it doesn't seem to show any dirt, whereas this just looks filthy. But it is dirty though, because if you come up close, you can see I can actually draw on it because the car hasn't been washed for a little while because I just haven't had the time. Along the side here is also quite dirty too. This is where you get all the mud and everything flick up the car. There's actually little streaks of mud, and when I first saw them, I panicked thinking they were scratches. I thought someone had keyed the car, but you know, again, from a distance, you don't really see them. It's only really when you start to get up close. But I would consider this car quite dirty right now, which you might not believe when you see it on the video. Then of course we have the front of the car, the most meanest part about this car, and I'm guessing you can see from the camera, I just checked on the camera itself, and I don't think you're going to be able to see any of the dirt on it here. It looks mean, it looks aggressive, and it probably looks clean, but let's take a look up close and you'll see it is much more dirtier than you think. But again, this paint does a fantastic job of hiding this. Right, now let's give this car a full wash so you can see how incredible it looks when it's clean. And then afterwards, I'll sit down and I'll talk you through what it's been like to own this paint, how it's been to maintain, and of course, if I'd buy it again. First, I always start off with the wheels. We're using Built Hamber wheel cleaner here, which is a great acid-free cleaner. After waiting a few minutes, I like to agitate it with my brush here to lift any stubborn dirt. Then pressure wash it off all the chemicals to reveal nice, clean wheels. Next, I use this citrus-based pre-wash. It's safe to use on matte paint and it helps soften any tough, stubborn dirt and reduces the risk of scratching the car. You only really need to use this on the lower parts. Now I'm running across the entire car with my pressure washer from top to bottom. This removes as much dirt as possible before we make contact with the paint. Now we're going to cover the whole car in snow foam to lift any further dirt. As we rinse away the snow foam here, you can already see the car is looking much cleaner without us even touching the paint. For the contact wash, we're going to be using a special matte paint shampoo with the 2-bucket method. 1 bucket to rinse and 1 bucket to wash. I like to use a microfiber wash mitt for this process. The key is to keep your wash bucket free of any contaminants and debris, so you rinse the mitt separately in the rinse bucket. Once the whole car is clean, it's time for the final rinse to remove all the soap. Drying a matte car is such a lovely process because when it's wet it looks shiny, but once you remove the water you're left with the lovely flat finish. So you can really see a difference when you dry the car. It's very satisfying. And that's it. It's honestly a pleasure to wash this car. But let's take a deeper look into my thoughts and experience owning a car with this paint for over 2 years. Okay, so now the car is clean. Let's take a closer look at this gorgeous paint. So here are my honest thoughts on this paint. Would I spec it again? And should you buy a matte car? Well, to be honest guys, this paint has been a pleasant surprise. And I'm actually going to go as far as to say it's been the easiest car I've ever owned to maintain. One thing about this car is it actually has quite a lot of gloss black trim pieces on the outside, and they look great. They contrast really well with the matte finish. But the biggest eye-opener for me was when I was washing the matte paint at the same time as washing the gloss black paint. And you won't believe this, but the gloss black was an absolute nightmare in comparison to keep clean. It showed fingerprints, it showed dust, and it would show scratches a lot more as well. And when you're drying the car, it's so much more nicer and so much easier to dry and also wash the matte finish. So if you were to compare the two side by side, the matte finish is 100 times easier to maintain than a gloss black. However, there is one thing you really need to consider when buying a matte painted car, and that is scratches and scuffs. Now, you've probably heard the saying online, and it's the biggest kind of thing that scares people from buying this finish, and that is if you scratch this car, you can't repair it. You have to paint the entire car. Well, painting the entire car, that is absolutely ludicrous. This paint can be repaired. However, the problem is if you have a light scuff or a light scratch on a gloss car, all you need to do is just get some compound polish and you can polish it out. And if the scratch or scuff is not deep enough, 8 out of 10 times it's going to repair it, and it's going to cost you pretty much nothing, and it's a super easy process. Now the problem lies with the matte finish is you can't polish this paint. If you polish it, it's going to completely ruin the finish. So if you do have a minor scratch or bump, your only option is to repaint it. And normally you'll have to repaint the entire panel and then blend it into the rest of the car. Now, because this finish is a bit more rare, it's going to be harder to find a body shop that has lots of experience with this paint. And really that lies the problem, because less people are working on this paint, less people experienced with it, which means if you do find someone, it's going to be very specialized, and that means it's going to be more expensive. But it doesn't mean it's not possible. It's definitely possible to repair this car. But of course, it is more difficult to repair, and it is going to be much more of a pain than if you had a gloss car. And I think that is a huge one to consider if you're thinking about buying this paint, because some people get a lot of anxiety about owning a car like this, and if you're constantly panicking and worried it's going to get scratched, you're not going to enjoy the car. And to an extent that has been a little bit for me. I mean, it's not taken away from the experience of owning the car at all, but it just means that if I was going to go to a busy supermarket, or if I was going to take my daughter to soft play, which is a terrifying car park with all the children, I'm going to be a little bit anxious about the car, and I'm probably going to park it a mile away. But you know, if you're not an anxious person, or even if you are an anxious person, you know, it's not a reason to not get this car, but it's something you really want to consider. I've got to say though, guys, the paint is absolutely phenomenal in person, and everyone who sees it comes up to me and talks about it. I mean, obviously this car is a stunning looking car as well, but this paint just takes it to the next level. And if you asked me, would I go for this paint again? Absolutely, no regrets at all. It just looks so good, and it really makes the car feel extra special. So you've got to see one of these in person. I mean, pictures online and the video, I'm sure it's going to look fantastic, but nothing beats seeing this up in person. It just stands out so much more than the other cars, because you're used to seeing that shine and you've got this flat look, and it really, really brings out the lines of the car and makes it much more aggressive, especially the front. The front end, it just looks insane. The shark nose front end that this car's known for. And then when you've got all these little gloss black trim elements, they kind of play off the flat and you get this really nice contrast. And oh, it just looks so good in person. And I am so pleased I went for it. Absolutely no regrets. Oh, and if you noticed, my hat here has some dirt on it. When I was washing my car, it was so windy that the wind just blew it off my head. And for some reason, my instinct was to shoot it with the hose. Luckily, I captured it on video. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful if you're interested in buying a matte car. If you want to learn more about this paint, I've got tons of videos on it. I'll link 2 up here at the end. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.